Hello everyone, my name is Sarafi and I'm happy to meet you all. And today we're going to be talking about the Ahri and Heimerdinger reveals. So the champions have come to the game, you've been able to acquire them pretty easily, and I want to talk about their constellations. So we knew the star powers, but we can see the actual constellation now, and the item cards in the deck. So, let's get started. Ahri's constellation is extremely interesting. So her third star spreads out into basically the entire rest of the map. This means that you can essentially, once you've gotten the third star, choose which upgrade you want. Instead of having, being forced to go down a path. Her 4-star is right there. Her 5-star is locked behind one. Her 6-star is locked behind 2, but I mean, you're not going to get her 6-star right away anyway. So you can choose what you want to do. So obviously we have the when you recall an ally, granted spirit. That's pretty good. Then +1 starting mana. Units keep permanent stat buffs and keywords when recalled. And when you recall an ally, reduce its cost by 1. Very, very powerful effect. And then lastly we have when you recall or summon an ally, granted spirit. Completely fine. Now let's take a look at what you can get from there. Hold it. Round start, stun the strongest enemy. The Maker has Locket of the Iron Solari, so the Maker gets Barrier, which is pretty strong and solid. Spells you acquire in Adventures have Mana Potion, so they cost 1 less. It's very, very good. And then the mana flows over here. But this is a upgrade item, so you can literally just ignore this and just get this first star and move on. Same thing over here, Star of Bounty +2 rerolls, and then just a Ionian upgrade item. Ionian upgrade item here. So these two can be ignored as well. And then you have your support champions have Stalker's Blade, which is crazy. Stalker's Blade does trigger off of summoning, so you can just bounce your support champion, replay them over and over again with extra spirit. They will keep striking this weakest enemy and just keep clearing the board. This is a great way for you to maintain tempo while you are bouncing all of your units with Ahri. And then next up we have Dancing Droplet has Flash Bomb Satchel. So Dancing Droplet will plant 4 traps in the top 8 cards of your opponent's deck every single time that it's played, which is crazy good. And then of course we have her 6-star. Okay, so I like the flexibility of Ahri's path. It basically just lets you choose, oh, do I want to get the Mana Potion right away? Do I want to get the Stalker's Blade immediately? You know, maybe I want to get her 4-star right now. You know, but you don't have to. If you don't have the 10 Ionian fragments, then you can just move on and not have to worry about being locked behind the 4-star like you are with Darius and Jinx. Pretty good. For her level ups, Pathless Ancient has Skirmisher Saber. So Pathless Ancient is the 0 mana 4/3 after you've recalled 2 units. Giving it Skirmisher Saber is pretty solid. It's going to have Spirit, of course, so it'll be a 5/4. You can give it additional spirit by bouncing it. Making sure that it can actually kill something is very important to make sure that you can retain your board control. Sparring Student starts with Coral Crush Gauntlets. If anyone's ever seen Sparring Student, they know Sparring Student gets huge. So having a 7/7 with +1/+0 and Brash, just make sure that it's going to be a good trade that you make or that you just hit the Nexus. So this is a very good upgrade. Next up we have Sprite Dance with Oracle Lens. This is probably the weakest one, but Sprite Dance is probably the best card in the deck, so it probably doesn't need anything. You couldn't give this like Tear of the Goddess. It's just too powerful. So Oracle's Lens just is the weakest spell upgrade, so it's going to be the one that gets. Homecoming starts with Mighty Mustache. Now remember that Ahri's Relic gives you a copy of Homecoming in the opening hand and gives it double time watch. So being able to summon a 3/3 Overwhelm Poro is very solid. Getting Overwhelm in the deck is important. None of the other cards have Overwhelm. So having this 3/3 that you could potentially buff, get up to being like a 5/5 or something that Ahri can then use to win the game with is pretty good. Obviously Ahri herself, if you level her up, can just elusive strike that whole Nexus. But while you're trying to level her up and get her more powerful, this is going to be a good way to get some damage on the board. Mr. Root starts with Bright Staff, so Mr. Root will have 2 spirits. A 2 mana, so it'll get a 3rd spirit when it's summoned. So it'll be a 2 mana 3/4 that draws you a card when it's summoned. and then when you bounce it, it keeps all those stats. It becomes a 4/5, you know. Then you play it again, and it gets another spirit. So it's just crazy. This card is going to easily stack up to be one of your most powerful units. Then you're going to play your 2-cost card to bounce it and give all of its spirit stacks to Ahri. It's going to be insane. The Maker starts with Pickaxe. This is very important. The Maker, of course, has play recall a unit with less power than me, so being able to have 5 power initially gives you more options for what you can recall. Of course, the Maker can recall enemies, which makes it one of the more offensive units in Ahri's deck. You do need to not die, so the Pickaxe is going to be huge for that. Dancing Droplet gets special delivery. So Dancing Droplet gives attack 5 Puff Caps in the enemy deck. Now this is just attack, not Nexus Strike. So you can use this even if you're being returned by Ahri. So pretty good. You'll just plant a bunch of traps by both summoning and attacking with Dancing Droplet. It's going to be one of your better units. Charm starts with Mana Potion. Charm is terrible, so making it less terrible is good. 1 mana almost makes it worth it because it does have focus, but it's still a very niche card that just basically gives you the ability to quickly recall. Basically, the main benefit of Charm is that you can recall the unit and then immediately resummon it, I guess. And with 1 mana, it's kind of worth it. Mr. Roots starts with Ninja Tabby, so this is important. Mr. Roots gets Elusive. The reason why you want Mr. Roots and Dancing Droplet to have Elusive is so that Ahri can safely strike with them. If Ahri attacks and then you put Mr. Root or Dancing Droplet right next to her, you know that that unit is going to not be blocked. Therefore, Ahri can strike her blocker, and then she will immediately move so she doesn't get struck back, in the same way that Katarina recalls herself after she strikes. And then once she's moved, she strikes again, and she will hit the Nexus because your opponent can't block Elusive, in theory. So that's really, really good. This is very similar to the ninjutsu mechanic in Magic the Gathering, which I'm assuming is the inspiration for Ahri with Elusive, which is pretty interesting. Next up, we have Pathless Ancient starts with Phage. So Pathless Ancient will be when it's summoned a 7/6, because it gets +2/+2 and then another spirit. So a 7/6 Challenger for 0 if you've recalled 2 units this round. That's really good. Yeah, I like it. And that's it. Okay. So yeah, pretty good, pretty solid overall. What was her buff to all followers? Support champions have Stalker's Blade. I don't think I saw a buff to all followers. Oh, it was spells. Spells you acquire have Mana Potion. Okay. Alright, I mean, that's fine, I guess. Yeah, no, so overall, I think Ahri is definitely stronger than Heimerdinger. I think Ahri is going to be a good champion, a solid champion. I know a lot of people were excited to see her get added, so great. I will say, though, that the Constellation looks nothing like what was previewed, which is kind of weird. Why did they change the Constellation from what they were teasing? You know, it was like a weird box shape, and now it's a star. Yeah. Okay. Now let's check out Heimerdinger. So Heimerdinger's Constellation is pretty straightforward. You've got 2 paths. One of them wraps around to the 6-star. The other one, I believe, gets you the 5-star. Yeah. So it is going to be pretty expensive to go the whole way, but I mean, we knew what we were signing up for. So you start up here. Science, Tech Allies in hand and in play have a random upgrade for each time you spent 6 mana on spells. Sure. Pursuit of Progress, +1 starting mana. When you summon a unit, refill 1 spell mana. That's really good. Obviously, if you summon the unit off of a spell, you're going to get your spell mana back. That's what you want. Next up, we have Science 2. Tech Allies in hand and in play have a random upgrade from an improved pool of upgrades for each time you spent 6 mana on spells. So far, I have experimented with this a little bit. Some of the upgrades that I've seen have been like +1 health and tough, +3 health and fearsome, +2 attack and brash, a few other ones. I will say that Once you've got the upgrade, that upgrade applies to everything. So it's not a random upgrade for each unit. It is the same upgrade on every unit every time you play a 6-cost card. So, and at least for the first star, there don't seem to be that many different ones. So I'm hoping that the ones that happen once you got Science 2 are a lot more interesting, because right now this does not feel like it makes up for so many of the units in the deck being vanillas. Right here we got the two little upgrades, plus 75% XP for champions from my region, so Piltover and Zaun and Vandal City, and then extra legendary powers. Okay, so this stuff is like off to the side right here, we can just ignore it. Big Ol' Dust Sprinkle, when you summon a created ally, grant it +1/+1. This was a creative way to deal with the fact that Big Ol' Dust Sparkle is probably too powerful to give to a champion. And it's nice to have it as like a new card. It's also pretty cool that the Sprinkle is his eye. So it's like the twinkle in his eye. I like that. Next up we have Star of Legends. Your support champions have tech evolution. That's very important. So your support champions will have augment and they will become tech units. So that means that they get the upgrades as well. Pretty solid. Conchologist has tech evolution, so this doesn't feel like it's worth a constellation slot. Augment is not really that powerful for Heimerdinger's deck. It's genuinely not. So the primary benefit of this is just making the unit a tech unit. And, I mean, okay. To be fair, Conchologist does create a card in hand. So you could argue that it's going to give itself that +1/+0, so it'll be like a 3/3 if you do this. But you have to play the card first, which is... you're not, like... It's imperfect. I feel like they could have just given us a tech unit, as opposed to giving us this card and then making it a tech unit if you spend 40 fragments on it. But fine. And of course, up here we got the 6-star... Tech allies in hand and in play, start the game with 3 random improved upgrades, and game start, summon a Mark 0 Windup Shredder. I mean, if all the upgrades are going to give you a bunch of stats, then this Windup Shredder is probably going to be like a 5/5 on average. A 5/5 with Challenger for 0 mana at the start of the game is just really, really good. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a very solid ability. Over here, we got +1 reroll and 100 gold. Followers you require in adventures that cost 3 or more have tech evolution, so you have to get more expensive units to get more to keep the tech going. And then mana flow start with an empty gem, with an extra gem. And the last upgrade, even past the mana flow, is Hex Obliterator has Charging Sigil 3. I don't think there's been a single card in any deck, correct me if I'm wrong, that has gotten Charging Sigil 3, which is +4 damage. So Hex Obliterator is a 6-mana spell that's going to deal 10 damage to a unit, and if it would die, obliterate it instead. I could definitely see why they locked this behind the 5-star. That's a really, really powerful effect. So this is probably like one of the best stars on this tree, and you definitely don't want to sleep on this one. Alright, now that we know what the Constellation is like, let's take a look at the deck. So Conchologist starts with Giant's Belt. I already alluded to the fact that it will be a 3/3 once you get the spell that it played, so it starts as a 2/3. Wrenchbot starts with Studded Leather, so Wrenchbot is a 1-mana 2/2 vanilla, which again, I'm not too happy about. Flash of Brilliance starts with Hand Sensor. Flash of Brilliance is kind of an awkward card. For those of you who don't know what it does, it creates a random 6-cost spell in your hand from your regions and then refills your spell mana, so it's literally free. It's a 3-mana card that gives you 3 mana back. So they can't make this card too good because you get benefit out of paying the 3 mana, and you also get benefit out of having the 6-cost spell in your hand. So it's just, because it's so free already, there's not really a good way to buff it. This is the card that should have gotten the Predict, to be honest. The fact that it's getting Hand Sensor is pretty nice. Like that's a weak effect, but it's better than Predict, so I like it. Aftershock starts with Charging Sigil 1. This is rough. Aftershock is already a bad card because it's slow. Dealing 3 to a unit or destroying a landmark. So giving it only +1 damage is not great. 3 mana, deal 4. Not going to be the most exciting thing that you do. It does give you like halfway to upgrading a unit. And I know that like Heimerdinger doesn't really want mana discounts for his abilities. because he wants to spend mana on his spells. But they could have better upgrades than these. Next up, we have Golden Crushbot starts with Ancient Coin. So Ancient Coin makes Golden Crushbot a 2-mana 2/5. Again, it's just a vanilla. So now that I know that these upgrades aren't like effects, they aren't like items, like, for example, the Flash Bomb Satchel, but instead just stats and keywords, I'm not too sure that this is going to be that fun. We'll see. Next up, we have Hex Obliterator, starts with Grifter's Deck. This is just the best card in the deck. So, Grifter's Deck is, when I play this card, when you play the card, shuffle 2 copies of it into the deck, and they cost 1 each. So, you're going to have Hex Obliterator as 6 mana, deal 10, obliterate the target that you kill, and then you shuffle 2 cards that cost 1 mana that obliterate for 10 into your deck. So this is just insane. It's a great card. Next up, we have Epic Strap Traction. Starts with Stopwatch. This is hilarious. So Stopwatch, of course, makes it burst. Strap Traction lets you spend all your mana to summon a unit that has its stats. So like if you spent 5 mana, it's a 5/5. So doing that at burst speed is hilarious. You can easily get an extra blocker. You could just go into the attack phase immediately for 8. You know, it's going to get you some serious damage out of nowhere, and then of course it will also give all of your tech units an upgrade if you spend at least 6 mana. So just a solid card overall. Then we have Hextech Handler, gets Shadow Totem. This one is rough. So Hextech Handler, grant all your tech allies everywhere +1/+0 once you played a 6-cost spell this game. So the Hextech Handler has to be on the board when you play a 6-cost card, which isn't too difficult right now for me, because I can just play it. You know, it's a solid 3 mana 3/3. It probably has 1 upgrade when I play it, and then, you know, once I play a 6-cost card, it buffs my whole deck. Cool. But for the Shadow Totem, if I want to get the value out of this Shadow Totem, I have to have the 6 mana ready to go immediately, because it's not retroactive. So 3 mana, slap these down. If I have 6 mana left, I can buff every tech ally by +2/+0, which is insane. But how am I going to do that? Like how am I going to do that? That's going to mean that I have to wait until turn 6, and I have to have 3 spell mana banked, and I have to have a 6-cost card. Not a 7-cost card, not an 8-cost card, a 6-cost card. That is, I mean, it's not turn 6 technically because you have the starting extra mana, but still, this definitely seems like a card that like you're not going to be able to use at all until you get the mana flow. And there aren't too many cards in the game that I would say like require you to be playing the 5th star to be good, because the 5th star really seems to be the rarest. I don't see too many people with mana flow compared to like the 4 and 6 stars. It seems to be the one that like people put off the most, because it's usually completely in the other direction from the 6 star. So, and in Heimerdinger's case, it's definitely so. So, I don't know, this feels bad to me. But that said, I think I have enough. No, I don't. I'll probably get enough with the Battle Pass. It definitely feels like you get rewarded for going down the Battle Pass with Heimerdinger, especially. Once you get his 5th star, he's going to be pretty good, but until then, this Hextech Handler is not going to feel too strong. Alright, next up we have Mark 1 Wrenchbot, starts with Philosopher's Stone. So at level 24, finally it's not a vanilla. Okay, a 1 mana 2/2 that draws you a card, I'm in. Let's go. That's good. Then we have, finally, Aftershock, starts with Summoning Beacon. Again, this is another example of a card that got a poor upgrade early, getting boosted. 3 mana, deal 4 or destroy a landmark, but then you also summon a 3-drop. And that 3-drop could be a tech unit, because both the Golden Crushbot and the Hextech Handler are 3-drops from Piltover and Zon. So, okay. You know what? That's fine. Obviously, since you're going to summon a unit, you're going to refill 1 spell mana as well, which basically kind of gives Aftershock like Tear of the Goddess, sort of. Or not Tear of the Goddess, Mana Potion, sort of. But it also means that it's better than Mana Potion because you're not you're spending the 3 mana, so you are counting towards Heimerdinger's turrets, you're counting towards science. It's better than just reducing the cost by 1, while still reducing the cost by 1. So, yeah, you know, once you get down to the very end of Heimerdinger's tree, it feels like the deck starts to come together. My thoughts, Heimerdinger is... The champion Heimerdinger seems like he's going to be really, really bad. I don't see anything in this deck that makes Heimerdinger cheaper or easier to play, and he's 5 mana. And he's got no stats. And you don't... I mean, you can play Lost Chapter on him, which is probably going to be required. You're probably going to have to play Lost Chapter on Heimerdinger to get any value out of him at all. But Heimerdinger is not a champion that can benefit from like the Grand General's Counterplan, for example, because Heimerdinger's champion spell is 8 mana. It's 8 mana and it draws you 3 cards. You're not going to want to play that card every single turn, even if it gives you a T-Hex. That's not a good idea. And you don't want to play Deceiver's Crest on him because you don't want to play a 0-cost spell. So, I don't know. Maybe Heimerdinger is a character that you play Arcane Comment on. I bet he is. I bet you just play Arcane Comment and you just get 6 drops every turn. The 6 drop does have elusive, and 6 mana is the sweet spot because it gives you the extra tech charge every single turn. Okay, now I'm starting to see. Okay, so probably Heimerdinger's best setup is probably going to be his Epic Relic, Arcane Comet, Archangel Staff. Or maybe Arcane... Would you Arcane Comet Chemtet Duplicator? You would never get any value out of Chemtet Duplicatoring Arcane Comet, except for the fact that you get a second elusive turret, and you also get an extra upgrade. That actually might be better than getting 3 mana every turn. As crazy as it sounds, that might actually be better than getting 3 mana every turn. Of course, since I don't have his Epic Relic, I'll just do these. I'll just do Arcane Comet, Archangel Staff, Chemtet Duplicator, and that'll be fine. Okay, so that's my thoughts on these 2 champions. As far as Ahri is concerned, I don't know, what would you play on Ahri? Probably Death's Foil. That's probably the best one. Oh, you could play Fear Cleaving Axe. Oh, Fear Cleaving Axe probably be pretty good. Because you attack, you boost, and then they keep the spirit after the... Okay, yeah. No, it's gonna be Fear Cleaving Axe. Then probably... She doesn't recall herself. Probably, what is the... Living Weapon, the Living Weapon one, where start of round, attack and play Forge Me, just to get her stats up a little bit, and then probably Banshee's Veil or Black Shield if you have it. Yeah, I bet. Okay, well there you go, chat. That is my thoughts on the new 2 champions, their constellations, and their decks. My name is Srafi, and I was thrilled to have all of you with me.